Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. And now to honor America, please join in the singing of our national anthem. Representing the three-time Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils, Arlette.
I feel like I'm at a game. Oh my gosh. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Happy Devils Sunday! How is everybody? I'm in the bunker studio in an undisclosed location. So that means I don't have the neighbor downstairs where I have to whisper. And you're probably wondering why on the left of the screen it's blank right now. It's all black because Short Sky and Beer Baron are having what we call technical difficulties. Welcome to the Let's Go Devils podcast, season 2, episode 21. I am your host, Sam Wu, expecting Short Sky and Beer Baron to sign on at some point. You know what? Why don't we just focus it just on me? Let's cut into this feed. Yeah, you see my background? Now you get to see a little bit of the behind-the-scenes things going on. Actually, I have a fake background. You see the Sam Wu, and you see this. You're looking on the Facebook Live. You see the New Jersey Devils pennant. You see my Metropolitan Riveters Isabel Cup Championship banner. Do you know where I got these things? I actually got it at the Devils fan club viewing party when I participated buying a raffle ticket. And I won 2 things. It's great. It's great. And I also have an Isabel Cup playoff towel. It's right behind me if you look on Facebook Live. Just want to say hello to everyone that's watching. Alamada, or Zamota, football game now on mute. And he says, woo! Well, I'll give you a big woo to you too. Alan. Rob Klobos is watching. Eric Burns is watching. He said, thank God something hockey is on. Football sucks so bad. Football's not that bad. I like football, only if my Giants are winning. Still waiting for Shorts Guy. Still waiting for Beer Baron to come in. You know what? Beer Baron actually just texted me. He's like, oh, he's logging in right now. Actually, yeah, I see him. I see him there. And he's trying to get his camera and microphone all together. But right now I have him on mute. He could probably hear me right now. That's good. We've got one of our hosts. You know, I want to ask Beer Baron this. I'm gonna ask him.
Crazy.
And Beer Baron, was that a pun when you texted me that your computer froze? I know it's freezing outside where you live.
No, I was. This was unusual. I had my computer signed in, logged in, ready to rock and roll, and I came over to the setup, and for whatever reason, everything was frozen up, and that was well before we actually went on, and then just trying to fix it right now. So thank goodness it came through. I don't know what's going on. It's kind of like a wacky night.
Oh, I was holding down the fort while you were signing in, and I was just BSing away how I went to the Devils fan club viewing party where we watched that debacle against the Islanders, but I won a 10-year anniversary New Jersey Devils pennant. I also won some Metropolitan Riveters memorabilia when they won the Isabel Cup last season, and a playoff towel. I love the Devils fan club. I just absolutely love the Devils fan club. And I had a pretty good time. Trudy was great. David Holiday writes, LOL, how did you feel about the pass interference today? The NHL reffing just as bad.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I got to tell you this story. I have a good friend from childhood. For years, since we were 4 years old, I love busting his chops on all the, all of his teams that he follows. Like, he's a big Jets fan, big Rangers fan, big Yankees fan. So all those teams, like, I hate.
Mm-hmm.
But he went to Purdue. I went to Penn State, and he was a big Drew Brees fan. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I decided, hey, I'm going to go on Facebook Messenger and troll him, right? And I said, I feel bad for Drew Brees. My condolences. Or I said something to that effect. And he goes, I can sense your sarcasm. And I said, and then he said, the refs suck. And I said, no, that was a great no call. And he just went ballistic at me. And then he said,
you deserve everything that he said.
Yeah, and then you know what else he said, Beer Baron? He goes, yeah, and Martin Brodeur is overrated, and I'm not trolling you. I really mean it.
Well, he doesn't have a brain in his head. What do you want from him?
I know. But he's a good guy. He really is a good guy, except for the teams he follows. That's the only thing we disagree with. But this is season 2, episode 21. It's the title is beefing up. I love the new kid yesterday that they put in the lineup. He just was sent down, because they got 4 AHL games, and the Devils are on their quote-unquote bye week. And we almost didn't pull off the show because I was actually going to make an excuse. We have a bye week too. But no, the show still goes on. But what do you think about that guy, Nathan? How do you pronounce his last name? Is it Bastain or?
I believe it's Bastain. But
Bastain. Yeah.
In all honesty, I thought he had a pretty solid game. It was funny because somebody was comparing his minutes to Jesper Bratt, and I think one of the biggest kind of hooplas that was made was that he was given more minutes than Jesper Bratt, especially towards the end of the game, and then Jesper Bratt scores a goal. But regardless. It's funny. He has a okay game. He gets into a fight. He actually won the fight, which is kind of nice. That's one hell of a way to enter the NHL. But I remember when that kid was drafted, there was a video of him talking about how excited he was going to be playing with Pavel Zacha. And, lo and behold, he ends up getting to play with Zacha. But I don't know, man. It's like this season is just going to be, for the rest of the year, it should be who we're going to sell off and who we're going to bring up to put on a tryout. And when the hell are we going to bring Mikey McLeod up here so he can get his goddamn minutes?
You still want Mikey McLeod in the worst way.
I have the jersey like lined up online. I'm waiting to hit the enter button, but it's like,
But you have to wait to find out what number he's assigned at the big club before you order any jersey.
I'll get a blank jersey with just his name on it and a big heart on the back.
McLeod with no number on the back or the arms.
Yeah, just a big heart symbol.
By the way, sorry for being late. I had some stuff today. I had changed the schedule because of the weather from yesterday and today.
Oh, dude, I was late too.
Things got all screwed up my end.
Well, so, truth be told,
Mr. Sam doesn't do anything to me.
Well, no, actually, truth be told, I want to tell all the listeners and viewers are watching us live right now on Facebook Live, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube Live, and listen to us on letsgoodolls.com that I actually got this show up and running by 8:53 p.m. We go on at 9. So it's not like we did it.
Did you really be giving all this away, Sam?
Yeah, well, we didn't even do our pre-show meeting or going through the show rundown. You guys don't even know what this show is about. This podcast is about. So I might as well just tell you.
All right,
we just
fill us in, producer Sam. Do your producing job and tell us what's going on.
All right, so this is what we're going to talk on the show today. So everybody in the Facebook Live, you're going to see what goes on behind the scenes for about 2 minutes, how we prepare for this podcast, because it's usually about 2 minutes. Me giving you guys the show rundown.
See, really, for everyone that's watching, this is really how it's like watching a family squabble out at a restaurant for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Yeah. So this guy messaged me on Facebook, and he used to work for the Devils, right?
And he
used to be, well, no, I did some verifications, right? I actually did some due diligence because I said, I'll call you in an hour so I can make some phone calls to see if this guy's for real or not, or he's putting us on. His name is Bruce Zeman. He is actually a morning radio host up in Vermont. He used to work for the Devils. Used to be the Devils mascot. And he called me, and he has a pretty interesting story. His time with the Devils from the mid-'80s to till 2000. But he served as a mascot in between then. And, I called him up. We talked for about half an hour, 45 minutes. Great guy, knows his stuff. And he also does some NHL analysis for, I think, somewhere up in Vermont where he lives and where he has a morning show. So he knows his stuff about hockey. He and I were talking about Mackenzie Blackwood and this and that. So he's supposed to go on at 9:15. It's actually 9:13 right now. So I should probably – actually, I forgot to text to confirm that he was coming on. But, but we'll get to it.
Sam.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what the show's all about. So now the listeners and viewers sees what we actually do behind the scenes. But we didn't have this conversation, at 8:30. Anyway, let you guys take over.
So we're entering the bye week, and I think it's just in one of those perfect timing kind of situations because this team is just floundering. We lost to the Ducks, and the Ducks are terrible.
I know.
They were just on an 11 game or something like that losing streak, and then they won their previous game. But it's just the frustration from the team, the frustration from the fans. If you really want to make yourself all riled up, just go on to Twitter and actually read some of the comments because you would think that this is the worst team ever created and everybody's an a-hole and blah, 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 blah. You take it all with a grain of salt, but it's just like this season is fallen well off the cliff at this point.
Yeah, but you know what, though? It's the same situation like what happened when in the beginning of the season when it was Corey or Keith, and then everyone was all, oh, Keith is the future. Keith is the future.
Mhm.
And then that game in Buffalo that Keith played and looked, not so great. My entire Facebook news feed was like, Kincaid is terrible. Kincaid is terrible. Get rid of Kincaid. Blackwood's the next guy. It's kind of like, it's like, what a shift. Like, these are all the same people that were saying that it was, he was the next coming of our starting goaltender. So, it's pretty much it. It's a hard season. And it's been a bunch of hard seasons since 2012. It's been a string of hard seasons. Last year, we got ahead. We got well ahead of where we should have been. I want to say that last year we got lucky having that streak we did and catching up to the teams we did. This year's not going to be the same result, which flat out sucks. I'll say it. But it's whether, believe it or not, it's going in the right direction. We have prospects, we have youth, we have some veterans that will lead this youth as long as we keep the right players at the trade deadline. And we've got, goaltending options. They may not be solutions, but we have goaltending options, which I saw Corey Snyder, I believe, was assigned to Binghamton this week. So that's a good thing.
It is.
Now I have to figure out my fantasy setup because I've had him on the IR and I picked up Blackwood. So I don't know who's going to be in net for us now, but at least one of them hopefully will be.
And here's another question.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, coming out of the break, who's going to be coming back up? Is obviously Schneider is only on, down there for a conditioner assignment. So obviously he's going to be coming back up. So does that mean, Kincaid becomes a healthy scratch and then you're burning that spot on the bench, or do you send Kincaid down and put him on waivers and hope nobody picks him up? Do you try to move him out? Do you keep Mackenzie Blackwood down in the AHL? You know what I mean? So now the Devils are put into a situation where they're going to have to make a decision whether they want to do one or the other. And by the way, Chicago won tonight. So now the Devils,
that away.
Detroit, Chicago, Ottawa, and New Jersey. We're all tied at 43 points, and LA is in last place with 42 points. It is a race to the bottom to see who can get Jack Quinn or Kako.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of like, oh, how the mighty have fallen. I mean, look at who's at the bottom of that list. You have LA and Chicago at the bottom. Towards the bottom of that list. It's like, that's. I think you were bringing it up a couple weeks ago. That's the price of success is you don't get the good draft picks.
Yep.
You may not get all that top talent in the draft, and then eventually you kind of fall by the wayside, or you have a down season or two, and you're back at the bottom of the league and having to build back up.
Yeah, and
the only team that defies that logic consistently are the Edmonton Oilers. They're always at the bottom. They always get the top prospects, and they're always still at the bottom.
Which is very true. And one of the things that I find really funny about just the situation is you look at the Chicago Blackhawks and the situation that they were in. They were winning. They won their cups. Then you have to pay Taves. You have to pay Kane. You have to pay your top dogs. And when you do that, you allocate X amount of your money towards your cap, towards these, your group of superstars that basically brought you the championships. So now it becomes like, you pay, you're paying the piper because they brought you the championships, and now you're just going to have to keep paying them until either you can rebuild around them and you hopefully, can make one more run at it, or you can get at least maybe one more cup out of it. Or you get to the point where you just have to start trading these superstars off, and nobody's going to want to take on some of these contracts. And it's the price of winning, right? So, I mean, like you said,
I agree.
LA, 2 Stanley Cups, Chicago, 3 Stanley Cups. And we're talking about in the last, 10, 15 years? Something like that. So, and it's only a matter of time before Pittsburgh has kind of defied the logic of this, because they've done this for so long with the Crosby and Malkin and on the likes of that. And you have big names on that team, and they're still able to, keep that success going. But their time is going to come too, and they're going to be at the bottom of the draft too.
Agreed.
Hey guys, yeah, I just got Bruce on the line. Just give me 1 second here. So this guy, Bruce Zeman, he is a radio host up in Vermont, 92.1 FM WVTK. He does his morning show. He has a pretty cool morning show. I was listening to it earlier today, and he used to work for the New Jersey Devils. As a matter of fact, he was the Devils mascot, one of the first NJ Devils, right after Slapshot. It's, we talked about a little bit about Slapshot the puck, but we don't want to talk. We don't want to get into that nitty gritty. But you could find him on Twitter at Bruce Zeman, Zeman. Bruce, welcome to the Let's Go Devils podcast. Are you surviving the 3 foot of snow that you have in Vermont right now?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for having me on the show. I listen up here in Vermont, and it's an awesome podcast. We are surviving. We got about 3 foot of snow today, and I just finished digging out, so I'm happy to be on the podcast with you.
That is crazy.
Yeah. That's about what we were supposed to get in areas around here, but they screwed up the forecast again.
I think we lost Bruce.
No, you didn't. We lost you guys. I'm here. I'm just having a tough time hearing you, Sam.
Oh, okay. Can you hear the guys?
I can hear you, and that's about it.
Okay.
Hey, Bruce, can you hear me?
That's a little bit better.
So, Bruce, I got to ask you a question. You were one of the first NJ Devil mascots, and the first NJ Devil, or one of the first NJ Devils. What was that experience being one of the first, true Devil mascots that wasn't a giant puck?
Well, I have to tell you, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life, really. I mean, being a hockey fan, anybody that's ever put on a pair of skates certainly wants to skate out there on the ice and, hopefully win the Stanley Cup. And I was an intern in the Devils Public Relations Department back in 1990. And so I finished my college graduation, and I stayed in touch with the McMullen family. And then one day, just out of the blue, I get a call from Peter McMullen. He says, "Listen, are you still skating?" And I said, "Absolutely, Mr. McMullen, I am." And he says, "Well, I think maybe you should come down here and see me." And I said, "Okay. When?" And he goes, like right now. So I drove down to the Byrne Arena, talk about dating myself there. And the next thing I know, I'm down in the Devils equipment room with Dave Nichols, the old equipment manager, and they show me the Devils mascot outfit. And they said, "You're going to be putting this on." And I was looking at them. I'm like, what on earth are you talking about? And so, basically they said that for whatever reason, whatever happened, I was the only one that they knew that skated well enough to do this on no notice. So, I'm putting on the costume, and the players at the time are just laughing their backsides off as they're walking in, because here they am. They knew I had never done this before. I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I put it on there, and I'm skating out there. And, I managed to do the first game without killing myself or anybody else. But, it was a dream come true, skating in front of 20,000 people. I mean, how much better does it get than that?
Now, was it super hard to do? I mean, was it? I can imagine your field of vision was probably terrible in the helmet or the head or whatever you want to call it. That must have been pretty frightening, jumping onto the ice and having to skate with very limited vision.
You see out of the mascot's mouth. So if you see the New Jersey Devil now, it's essentially the same costume. Your vision comes out of his mouth. So when you're doing that, you're skating around, and the only time it's really my big concern, I didn't want to fall in front of all these people and make a complete fool of myself. But the only time that I ever thought that it was, I was a little worried is when we refereed the mites on ice, because, you could crush someone and not even know it. But, unfortunately, I never did that, because that probably would not have gone over well.
So Bruce, your first day with this new gig was, you didn't get any practice? They just threw you out there for a game day?
That is exactly what happened. It was a phone call that I got at about 1:15 or so in the afternoon. And, I was working for my mom at the time. I was a courier. I had just graduated from college and trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And, you get a call from, the team, because who doesn't want to work in the NHL if they're a hockey fan, right? So I go down there and do this, and, like I had said a moment ago, my only concern was please don't fall, in front of all these people. And, and I was a pretty good skater because I played hockey for St. Mike's up here in Vermont. So I was a pretty good skater, but, not with a 9-foot costume on and a tail trying to skate in front of 20,000 people, not making a total fool out of yourself.
Well, Bruce, I have one question. Now, was it Lou Lamoriello that asked you? I'm sorry, you said Dave Nichols, but you told me that story about Lou asking you to go more permanent, right? Was it Lou that did that, that hired you?
So what had happened? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So what had happened is I guess they hired some folks, and they kept having issues with them. I don't really know what those issues were. But finally, after one incident, I finished the game, and, here I am. I'm 20 years old. I'm in the best shape of my life and try not to embarrass myself. And I come up after the game to get something to eat. And, Mr. Lamoriello was in the Devils' offices, and he said, listen, I want to talk to you. And so he said, would you mind doing this on a more permanent basis until we find a professional to do this? And, of course, I obviously said yes, but at the time it scared the daylights out of me.
It's so funny to think about Lou Lamoriello coming and having this conversation, because he really had his hands in every aspect of this organization from top to bottom. And I think that's so cool that he actually approached you and actually came to you and said, would you like to do this? Now, one of the things that I admire the most about anybody that does a mascot job, and like the current guy that does the NJ Devil, he does such an amazing job, is how you are able to kind of focus yourself and stay in that character and not talk or not, jump out of character. And there's got to be times where people are messing with you or doing something where you're like, oh man, you just you get frustrated and you want to jump out of your skin, and you have to stay in that character. How hard is that for you? Or was?
That's a great question. It was very hard because, back in the day, the security wasn't always the greatest back at the old Meadowlands Arena. And so, that's exactly right. You'd be walking around, and especially against some of the teams that were big rivals of theirs, like the Rangers or the Flyers. I mean, those games got absolutely crazy. And, I'll tell you a quick funny story. So I had gotten invited to go to the 1994 All-Star game. And so we went over, and so, how big of a rivalry are the Devils and Rangers, right? I mean, there's probably not many that are as big as that. Well, I am walking around in the mascot costume in the upper blue seats of Madison Square Garden. You want to talk about taking your life into your hands? That was it, geez. Man. But you're exactly right. I managed to get out of there unscathed, and, it was a good time.
So, Bruce, I got to tell you this. Your biggest fear was falling on the ice. I actually did that when I worked back for the Bridgeport Soundtalkers. I did ice crew, walking around with the mascot at the time. And in between periods, launching stuff on the ice or from the ice, I lost an edge, and I fell right behind where the Zamboni had just cut. So let me tell you from my experience, it's miserable when you fall in front of that many people.
And it's funny because that was not the only thing that we did. Back in the day, you got to remember, this is before social media. This is before, everybody had iPhones and stuff. So, you would come to the arena, and, I was listening to Sam talk about you guys having your warm-up, for your show and everything. And, we did that. But what was funny at the time, keep in mind, this is 1990. This is a long time ago. Things were not exactly, shall we say, exactly 100% thought out that well. And so one of the other things that the mascot used to do was drive an ATV. And you would drive that ATV. Okay, well, you would drive that ATV at full speed with skates on. So you are literally an inch off the cement from ripping your legs off. So you're trying not to hit anybody with the thing. You're trying not to rip your legs off, and you're trying to make it on the ice and not wreck the ATV into the boards in front of 20,000 people. And if you're able to do that, I mean, I'll tell you, I had some white knuckle nights there. But again, it was, some of the best times of your life. It was awesome.
Now, after you were done, after you did your stint with the Devils and you did the mascot, were you able to stay with the team, or did you do anything after that with the team?
Well, the company my mom worked for NHL Productions. So I was a hockey analyst for a while for NHL Productions over in Japan, New York. We basically break apart different segments of the games and everything. And, the league would ask for different segments. Like they would want examples of forechecking or cycling or, when a penalty shot would be called. So I did that for about 2.5 years before I got back into radio. And, I played semi-pro roller hockey down there. So I was always involved in hockey, but, at the time there weren't all that many opportunities, with the Devils per se, because, everybody wanted to do that. And as you know, when you get out of college, you have to grow up sometime and, make money to eat. And so, I got back into radio and that's kind of what I've done since then.
Bruce, I wanted to ask you your time, as a mascot, because, again, I'm going back to like the time you were there as a mascot. I don't want to make you feel old. I was probably like 11 years old or 8 years old or 9 years old. Yeah. Yeah. But I always remembered, wasn't there a trumpet guy in the early 90s? Do you ever remember there was a guy that had a trumpet? And I think he was probably hired by the team. I don't think, it was just some random dude with a trumpet. And he would just play like, songs all the time. I forgot what he played. But do you remember a trumpet guy? He was like a short guy.
He was over by that guy Bauman that used to yell all the time and he used to lead all the chants. Yeah, he was out there and, we would hang out with him.
Okay.
It's funny, that Bauman guy's still there.
Wow. He's got to be getting up there now.
He is. He's from my hometown. I've met him a few times. Decent dude.
Still drinks Budweiser.
Yeah, it was such a great time, and I look back on that so fondly. It's you miss it, but you say to myself, "My goodness, I'm so glad I didn't kill myself doing that."
So Bruce, I want to ask you. You mentioned you played semi-pro roller hockey. Was that in the Roller Hockey International days?
No. There were leagues down in South Philly and South Jersey. I was on the New Jersey Grizzlies, which was out of where was it? Northern Jersey, and so those leagues were pretty rough. So I did that for a while until I realized that I had to stop doing that so I could walk when I got older.
Yeah, I still have my Rock and Rollers jersey.
I remember that Tony Zabo. I used to skate with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had that. I wish I had a
Continental jersey. I still do. So I remember buying it for like $15. It was nice. Still, it's like in decent condition too.
Absolutely.
So Bruce, what is what everything that you do up there on the radio in Vermont? Tell us a little bit about what it's like doing that up there now.
Well, I have the only morning radio show in the country with a dog as a co-host, and I'm on Facebook now watching your awesome podcast, and that dog that is up there is Hobbs, and he is a rescued domestic violence survivor, and we travel around the country talking about anti-bullying efforts, anti-domestic violence, and compassion and tolerance. And so him and I travel all over the country and visiting schools and different organizations to talk about being, to get the message out to kids about being kind and tolerant of each other. I also do, I'm the broadcast voice of Middlebury College, and I do some NHL analysts for our station and some of the other stations in our group. And it's just been, I was listening to your podcast when you first came on, and man, it's been tough being a Devils fan the past couple of years, but hopefully we get the ship going in the right direction soon.
Yeah, I think hopefully we'll get it in the right direction. But I have to commend you. Like, that is such an awesome idea, and the fact that you have a dog that a lot of people don't think about it as dogs and cats and animals that can survive domestic abuse, but they do. And I have to say I really admire what you're doing, and I really admire, the message that you're putting out there, and it's a really, really great thing.
Well, I appreciate that. What's interesting is working for the station that I work for. They get it. You talk about making a difference and making the world better. Money, you're not taking it with you. I saw a great speech earlier this year that Denzel Washington made at a school. And, he said, you're never going to see a hearse with a U-Haul behind it. You're not taking it with you. So, Make a difference when you're here. Don't just make a living, make a difference. And the station that I work at, I'm very, very lucky because they let us go all around the country and do these things. And, we wrote a book a couple years ago called Hobbs Goes Home. And that book, former President Barack Obama wrote the foreword for us. Wow. And talked about how important it is that we're nice to each other. And so it's just really awesome. And so, doing that and then doing the hockey for Middlebury College, which is one of the top, NESCAC hockey teams up here. They've got 8 national championships and everything. It's really a great fit. It's when you can do what you love. How awesome is that? I mean, you guys know that, doing this amazing podcast. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts out there, but there are not many that are as good as yours.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Thank you for the kind words.
One of the things that frustrates me a little bit is, I'm on the radio every day. We're the #1 rated radio station up here in our market, which is not easy to do. And, you work hard. I see your podcast. I see how hard you work. It's about having that constructive debate. The thing I like so much about your podcast is you have people on the show that know what they're talking about. You can actually discuss it and disagree in a positive way, which, it's not always like that on social media. So I commend you guys for that.
Yeah, that ability to agree to disagree seems to be a lost art. Everyone's got to be right nowadays, and I mean, I see it, and Beer Baron sees it because we're also both teachers, so we see all that stuff in the classroom too. So it's kind of scary that people don't have that art to disagree anymore.
Well, and the thing is, though, being a longtime hockey fan, I grew up, and I was telling Sam this on the phone. The company my dad works for used to own the Devils when they were the Colorado Rockies when they came over from Kansas City. So I grew up, following this team since basically they've been here. And, I take a great amount of pride being from Jersey. There's not a ton of Devils fans here in Vermont. But when you look at what the organization has done, and you look at some of the players that have come through the team, Martin Brodeur and Scott Niedermeyer and Scott Stevens, who's he's my childhood hero. I mean, just to be privileged to see those players play. I mean, imagine being like a Chicago Cubs fan. I mean, they've won the World Series, but before they did that, imagine going your entire life and not seeing your team win anything. I mean, how awful is that? But, I got to interact with Scott and Marty when I was there, and just they were two of the nicest guys you were going to want to meet, and you just like seeing good guys like that win. And I hope that with the new management that the team has, I hope that we don't lose that tradition, because I'm glad they brought Marty back. I think that was something that was the right thing to do, and hopefully we can somehow, whether it's Ty Smith or somebody else, hopefully we can find another Scott Stevens out there, because if you think about that, they have really not recovered or not had another defenseman since him and Scott Niedermeyer and even Ken Danico retired or moved on, and we need to get somebody like that.
Bruce, seriously, anytime you want to come on and talk hockey, you were like so knowledgeable. I mean, that you just hit that out of the park, like that holding on to that. What the Devils built with Lou Lamoriello and bringing that culture of winning and just the expectation of winning. And I really feel like the ownership has done that, and Ray Shero is doing that as well. And we're going through like a really rough patch of that rebuild and having to go through losing seasons. But you just nailed it on the head of that culture that was built up, and just the expectation of every game we would walk in. And it didn't, we were lucky because we had, like you said, Scott Stevens, Scott Niedermeyer, Ken Danico, and Martin Brodeur between the pipes. So you always had that expectation, but it was just the culture. It was the way that the Devils had presented themselves. It was I know Sam and Shorts Guy might not be Yankees fans, but that way that the Yankees present themselves, that the whole, aura about them. And I always say that. I always I always harken back on that. Like, I don't want them, even though they're in a different era and they're a different type of team, I just don't want them to lose that not we're better than everybody, but we just hold ourselves in a better manner than everybody.
Well, what's interesting, too, is Sam and I were talking about this. I was there one of the first times when Jacques Lemaire came in when they were going to make him the coach. And I can't be honest with you, I can't remember exactly when that was, but I remember him coming to the arena, and I knew all about him. I mean, who doesn't know about the Canadians and their success? And I remember he was sitting in the cafeteria, and he was having lunch, and whoever he was with left, and I just turned around and I said, Mr. Lemaire, my name is Bruce. I'm, a new intern here, and I said, I'm so glad you're coming. I said, because you're going to teach our franchise how to win. You're going to teach them how to be a champion. And I will never, as long as I live, I will never forget what he said to me. He thanked me. He was always a very polite man. And he said, there's nothing wrong with expecting to be great. There's nothing wrong with expecting to bring your best every night and have the pride, in that jersey. And, anybody like all of you that are huge Devil fans, for us, that started back when Scott Stevens decided to stay. When he could have gone back to St. Louis, and he was given that offer sheet, the 4-year, $17 million offer sheet. The Devils did what they had to do, and he stayed here. And that is when the culture of expecting to win changed here, and people started not making fun of us anymore, Devils fans. They had some pride in that jersey and everything. And, Jacques Lemaire is a beloved coach. He still comes, when he does come, standing ovations and everything. He taught us how to win. And so hopefully they keep that because, we're in a period now where we're between championships. It's been a while since we were in the finals 2012, which, was kind of a surprise when Peter DeVore brought us there. That was great that we did that. But, Ray Shero and John Hines, those guys have got a chance right now to write their own legacy. And I just hope they don't lose the touch with the past because I would love to see them bring Scott Stevens back as an assistant coach to work with Will Bitcher and Sammy Vatanen and Andy Green and those guys. He's one of the greatest defensemen ever, and I just hope that, they don't lose that.
Yeah, and something that might be lost, and sorry, Shorts guy, I saw you were about to jump in, but something that might be lost is Stevens did have an offensive side to him. It wasn't like he was always a shutdown, run him over defenseman, even though he did do that. He did have an offensive side to him, more to the beginning of his career, but I agree.
And he changed his game, too, if you think about it. As he started to get older, he realized he did what he needed to do to win. There was that year where he scored 78 points and led the team in scoring and everything. And, I don't have it in front of me. I don't remember what his totals were the next year. But, he realized he did what he needed to do to win. And, that rubbed off on the other players. New Jersey became a pretty, imposing place for other players to play. Ask Eric Lindros if he's going to go through the middle with Stevens there. Probably won't do that again.
No, you're right. I doubt he will. And just a comment on what you were saying. I do think that this management group has that grasp on picking the right players because we had when we had the choice between Nico and Patrick, I think we picked the all correct guy. Not just player not just skill wise, but personality wise. So I think that they're doing that. They're not rushing to go out and buy players that may look good on paper, but aren't going to fill in. It seems like they have a real good grasp on the locker room and who's going to fit in and not just getting a player for the sake of getting a player. As much as it drives us as fans nuts, I think that they're getting, they're really smart on who they're trying to bring into this team.
Well, if you think about it, I think that Ray Shero did a great job in doing his research. A lot of people were saying Nolan Patrick should go number one, but Nolan Patrick had a lot of injury issues. And Ray Shero, if people have read about this in the Hockey News or wherever, he went over, he met Nico, he really liked him, and that's one of the reasons that they decided to make him the number one pick over Nolan Patrick, who is, starting to heat up a little bit. But, let's be honest, he has not done as well as Nico has done in his first two seasons. And, hopefully, I think you hit it right on the head. Hopefully they know what is best and who is going to fit. They do have a ton of prospects now, that are down there. Bastion coming up, as you mentioned, early in the podcast, getting a chance to play, getting into a little dust up there. The question is, are the fans, hopefully the fans will be patient and let them do what they're going to have to do. I think this is going to be a rough ride at the end of the season. What do you do with Corey Schneider? I think that's I think it's a distraction for the team. I don't know what you do with that. I don't have an answer for you because no one's going to take on that contract. But, is it Blackwood and Kincaid? Is it Blackwood and someone else? What do you guys think about that? What do you do for the rest of the year?
Well, Beer Baron, you got to turn your microphone on first. As far as goaltending is concerned, I think at this point it's anybody's net. Obviously we know Corey's had his issues, confidence issues, injury issues. Eventually he's got to get back in the saddle and get back into winning ways. Kincaid has done well at times, and he's done terrible at times. Blackwood has come in. He's done very well very early, but this is only a small sample size of what he can do at the NHL level. Personally, goaltender wise, I think it's anybody's net, and it's not going to shock me to see all three of those guys get some kind of playing time until either unless they just want to see everyone equally, because at this point in the season, it doesn't look very good as far as playoffs are concerned, or B, until someone steps up and says, yep, this is my net, and just runs with it.
I think it's just interesting, too, what they do come the summertime. One of your other listeners just wrote, which key unrestricted free agents do you target, during the summer? And that's a great question. I mean, for me, the number one priority for this team is make sure you re-sign Taylor Hall. I think this is one of those moments in the sand for the franchise. You talk about Ray Shero and John Hines putting their mark on the team. I don't think you can let Taylor Hall walk, knowing the fact that he's going to cost you some serious coin.
Yeah. And he's fastly become the face of this franchise, and the fan base absolutely loves him. And after winning the Hart last year, I think he, has ingrained himself into this franchise for eternity. And you kind of like put it in the perspective of, you're going to need leaders to go forward. And if you want to recapture some of that past glory, you're going to need players that are going to be able to lead by example. And he's a prime example of what that should be. Other than him, there are a lot of offensive free agents that are going to be available. And it depends on if they want to take a shot at a Panarin, if they want to take a shot at a higher class guy like that. You have Stone coming out of Ottawa, depending if he resigns, and you have a Duchesne coming out of Ottawa if he resigns. So there's a lot of different options that the Devils could go in. It just depends on, how much they're willing to spend and how far are they willing to go. Because right now, I think they could use some more scoring, but their blue line, the defensive side of the game needs a lot more help than the offensive side.
Yeah, and that's true. And again, to me, it's not just about money. If they want Taylor Hall to stay here, and I've said this on my show up here, I don't know how you do it. I don't know the politics of the locker room, but I think it's becoming the time when Taylor Hall should be made the captain of this team. I think he's the natural leader, and I think that'll also demonstrate to him that they want him to stay here. I love Andy Green, but he's on the downside of his career. And I don't know how you do that, easily and not ruffle any feathers, because we've seen that happen before. But I think if you want him to stay here, I think you make Taylor Hall the captain of this team at the end of the season.
Yeah, and he really is the perfect guy for it. I mean, I caught this really quickly. It was either earlier today or yesterday when he announced on his own personal, I want to say Instagram, that Palmieri was going into the All-Star game instead of him due to injury. And it was just he just wrote something fantastic, like what a great captain and teammate would want, saying that Palmieri has earned this and he's taking his spot due to injury. That's the perfect thing that you want a captain to do. I thought that was something small, but something also fantastic at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit it right on the head. He is the heart and soul of this team. The fan base loves him. And, it's interesting, because there were some really negative things written about him when he was in Edmonton. And you see what happens when you come here and you're surrounded by a different environment. He's been the model teammate. He's been the model player. I mean, Ray Shero absolutely fleeced Edmonton in that trade. Yep. Taylor Hall for Adam Larson. Absolute, robbery. And he's come here. He wins the MVP. And, I mean, you saw how the fan base reacts to him. And, just to say something like that about Palmieri and give him his kudos, it shows what a classy player he is. He's everything that a Devil should be.
I agree. And he's, you talked about Andy Green and possibly giving up the captaincy and giving it over to somebody like Taylor Hall. I think it would, not just do wonders for him, it would do wonders for this locker room. And don't get me wrong. I love Andy Green. I feel like he's been a great captain, but like you said, he's on the back end of his career. and maybe it is time to change over the leadership. I just don't know how that would naturally, evolve in the locker room or how that would happen. But I think that if the team goes with Hall, if they're able to re-sign him to a long-term deal and go with him into the future, as long as he can stay healthy, I think we're in good hands.
I think so too. Knowing that they're talking for some of the other free agents $12 to $14 million a year. I mean, I don't, to pretend to be a cap expert, but you know that you're going to have to give him the coin to get him to stay here, and maybe, just maybe, because he likes it here, and he's said that. Maybe you give him the captainship, and then so he gives you a hometown discount. Because ideally, you want to lock him up for 8 years if you can do that. And I think maybe that would be the way to do it. However, as you mentioned, there are other there's some other big decisions they've got to make. What do you do with Marcus Johansson? What do you do with Brian Boyle? What do you do with some of these other players that are free agents or restricted free agents? Because Brian Ball is another one that I would love to see re-signed for a couple of years. He's the heart and soul of this team right now. I mean, what an inspiration he has been. And hopefully he sticks around. But again, as you know, we've talked about this. It's a business, so I guess we'll just have to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The one thing that the Devils have on their side, we have cap space available. I want to say we're at the floor of the cap right now. So we have the money that's available. So we can sign Hall, and on top of that, we have to sign Nico at some point as well. But I totally agree with you. The one player, and we've spoken about this, in weeks past, last week, I think in particular, Boyle was one of those players that was kind of floated as one of the possible top 5 that could be traded. I think that would be a terrible trade for the locker room because he is such a natural leader with the younger players. He's the one that can show them how to be a true professional, along with Hall. But I want to say that Boyle is definitely that character you want in your locker room to really build that culture that we're looking to rebuild.
I mean, if you look at some of the free agents that are coming out on the market, some of the unrestricted free agents, you have Erik Karlsson. He's making $6.5 million this year. Panarin making $6 million. Mark Stone, 7.3. Here's a goalie, Bobrovsky, with the Blue Jackets, $7.4 million. And then you've got Duchesne and Jeff Skinner, Pavelski with the Sharks, and Wayne Simmons and Anders Lee. There's some names out there, but again, there's also some baggage, if you think about that you've got to be wary of. You talked about the locker room. I'm just being honest with you, and I've said this on my show up here. Duchesne and Stone from Ottawa with the video gate and everything, that is like the last thing we need on this team. So, if you're going to go into that, you just got to know what you're getting. Buyer beware. At least in my opinion, anyway.
And,
if you could get Carlson, that'd be not bad.
I definitely think that both Shiro and Hines have that locker room and know exactly who's going to fit. And that's why I think that, given Hines that extension along with Shiro, I think they know what players will fit and what won't. And that's why they're not rushing to buy someone that's just going to, without knowing that they're going to fit in, basically is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I'm sure they'll do their due diligence. I mean, we saw what Shiro is capable of, not only getting Hall, but also, Vatanen, although it did cost them, Rico, who I would have loved to see come back. But, hopefully they know what they're doing. And, they got us into the playoffs last year. Was that a blip? Who knows? But, is this a rebuild? Are they just going to tool up on the fly? It's going to be interesting to see what happens because, the fan base, as you guys said earlier in the show, wants a winner. But, if you know a lot about the business of hockey, and it is a business, they're going to have to take their lumps if they want to get back to the top.
It's true. And, there's one name that's floating out there that could possibly be a unrestricted free agent where he is at this moment is Eberle. And it has been well documented that him and Taylor Hall are best friends. If you're going to bring in a good guy into the locker room, it seems like by all accounts he's a decent guy as well. He might be somebody that would be worth, bringing in. He brings some offensive upside. It's just going to be one of those things where, like we've just been saying, it's going to be the right fit. That Ray's not going to go out and spend the money just to spend the money on somebody. So it's going to be interesting. This is going to be an interesting offseason. We're going to see where we're going to land in the draft at this moment. It's looking like we're going to be drafting pretty high. So who knows what we're going to be able to get? We might be looking at a Jack Hughes, or we might be looking at a top 5 prospect coming in. So there's a lot of things that could happen between now and the beginning of next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, and I think it's going to be a very interesting trade deadline. You know, the one thing I do hope, I think for me, you know, if someone asked me this the other day on our show up here, you know, what is the number one priority for the Devils this season, this offseason, and that is re-signing Taylor Hall. I think he's going to get an 8-year deal, probably. Hopefully he doesn't get a deal like or doesn't look for a deal like the Tavares deal, which, you know, I don't know if they would pay that. But, you know, I think they need to send a message to the fan base that we're going to build around this guy, because I think also if they do that, I think that he is happy here. I think he likes it here, and I'll think he'll stay. But, you know, do you move some of the other players? I mean, you know, some of the names that have come up to be moved. I mean, would you move a Will Butcher? Would you move some of the prospects to get a big name? I honestly, I don't know if you do that. I mean, you have to be pretty sure that they're going to fit in, as you said, to move some of those prospects, because it seems that, you know, people rave about John Hines, the people that have worked with him in the minors, and what he seems to be doing is working. And so, you know, again, on social media, people kill him every time there's a losing streak, but you know, there's a way to do this, and they seem to know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate it. We got to have you on more often. This is great.
I would love to join you guys. I think you're very, very insightful, very, very knowledgeable hockey guys, and it was a privilege to come on your show, because it's a great show to listen to, and I would love to come on anytime you needed me to do that.
All right, thanks, Bruce. But before I let you go,
thank you, Bruce.
Bruce, before I let you go, I did have one question, because
Sure.
I go to Montreal often. Why is it, you know, there's 2 ways you could get to Canada, to Montreal from New Jersey. You could go through New York, that border, but you could go through Vermont. Why is it so easy to get to Canada through Vermont? They just let you in, whereas my experience going through the New York side, I get searched, I get detained. Do you know why?
Well, I don't know if this is going to make you feel better or not, but I will tell you, the town I live in, which is New Haven, Vermont, there's only 625,000 people in the entire state. We have one store, we have 1,100 people, we don't even have a police department, so maybe that gives you some idea.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Bruce. I appreciate it. I just always wonder why. So I usually go through Vermont now when I get to Montreal.
Well, I hope you stop by. And seriously, guys, thank you again for the privilege of being on your podcast. I'd love to come on again. It was really a great time. So thanks so much.
Great.
Bruce, thank you so much.
Bruce.
We'd love to have you back on, man.
You got it, guys. Thanks.
Thanks. Well, that's Bruce Zeman from Vermont. He's a radio show host for 92.1 FM WVTK. I think I got those call letters right. I wish we had call letters.
You know what? I should have asked him. I'm curious to see what the majority of Vermont hockey fans like. What are their NHL teams up there? Is it going to be the Bruins, or is it going to be like the Canadiens, or like what is the majority of the fan up there?
My guess is it's the Bruins, because generally all of the New England states tend to support as a block. You know, all of those states have you know, essentially done everything as a block of the New England states, you know, going way back in history too, even back to colonial days. But I won't go too deep into that because everyone will be, you know, bored. But my guess would be the Bruins. That's my thought.
Yeah, I recently was up in that area, and we drove through Hartford, and all I could think of is bring back the whale. Bring back the whale. Bring back the whale.
Well, Bruce said in the Facebook Live, Bruins and Canadiens.
There we go. There's our answer.
Yeah.
They're rivals. With 2 rivals, too.
Yeah,
like,
but that's
whenever.
I was going to say, Sam, but like if you get into Connecticut, that's kind of like the Yankee Red Sox thing. You know what I mean? Like if you get into the Connecticut area, there's a ton of Yankee fans up in that area. So it ends up being like almost like 50-50 split.
But it is true though. When you go to Montreal, if you go in the way of Vermont versus New York, it's so much easier to get through the border.
Sam, it's because you're a sketchy dude.
Why have you been
why.
detained?
You are a sketchy dude, Sam.
Yeah.
Like
I'm serious.
Well,
The Canadian Border Patrol. The questions they ask you at Vermont is, "Oh, where are you going?" I'm going to Montreal. Why are you going? See a hockey game? Oh, how many Stanley Cups have the Montreal Canadiens have won? 23? And then boom, you're in. Was it 23 or 24?
There is a town on the northern border of Vermont where the American-Canadian border goes right through town. In fact, it goes right through the center of the library in town, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to go check out a book in Canada.
Yeah, pretty much,
I'll come back and pay for it in America.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. You're crossing the border, going back and forth across the library.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, but I mean, they always ask you hockey questions on the Vermont, on the Vermont side versus New York side. You say one thing is you're detained. What? You're here for business? Why? You're going to that lane.
Yeah, right. How many fruits and vegetables do you have in your trunk, sir?
I got a story. I got a story for going over that border that I'll share for later on with when it's just us. It's pretty damn funny, but
guys, no. But in the future, I want to tell the audience. In the future, those stories, if you pay $29.99 a month, you may be able to get those stories that we have off air after the podcast, because that's when the real party starts. But right now, we're not there yet.
It's super interesting.
Oh, yeah.
The lights turn low. Start cussing out sailors.
So we have no Devils hockey coming up this week.
And at this rate, I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah, I know. Because we can't lose. We're not going to lose for at least a week.
Normally you get to this point and you have that week off and you're like, oh my God, like a week without hockey. This is like so depressing. And it is. It still is. Don't get me wrong. Even though the season we're having. But this bye week, I'm like, yeah, I just need to not watch losing hockey right now.
Yeah. No, I agree. The last two games have been tough. The Islander game, I know I caught you guys talking about that, and Sam and I having our good time at the Devils fan club, even though despite the loss, and then the game yesterday against Anaheim, I was traveling, so I couldn't watch it, but I was getting updates on my phone. And it was just like, losing to the Ducks. It's really, I'll tell you what, this streak is really kind of, I think we can really build up our how many beers is it going to take you to drink and watch this game contest. Well, not really contest, but just guessing game. Because, man, it's taken a lot of beers to watch some of these games.
Yeah, I think one of the most brutal parts about it is like this is the experience that I feel like I've been going through with Devils games. Start of the game, I'm like, all right, here we go, and then we start and we're like, hey, we scored first, all right, and then it just goes like right after that.
Yeah, it goes away real quick. Did the Devils do anything for Henrique yesterday? Or I guess it was yesterday.
I think they did it last year. They did it last year.
So now it's just like move on.
Chris Ryan had a funny article on Twitter, or funny just like tweet. He was like, "There's more fans down in the Anaheim section for the morning for the warm up skate than there are in the Devils section," just to show you like how much of an impact that Henrique had on us. And it's true, man. Like if seeing him sign that extension was kind of a bummer because you were like, maybe he'll just come back, like maybe he'll like, but no. He likes the sunny weather. And I really can't blame him for liking the sunny weather, especially on a night like tonight where it's going to dip even further below where it is now temperature-wise. Dude, I was shoveling slop today. That's what it felt like, just shoveling slop. Like 15 pounds in one. It was just like slop and just standing in 3 inches of water. It sucked, and now it's all frozen.
Hey, however, it's not 3 feet of snow like Bruce has to deal with. So I'll
That's
take
true.
a little bit of frozen slop because it's going to go away in a day or two. 3 feet of snow does not go away too easily.
No.
And hopefully, I mean, I know it snowed and that this may screw everything up, but man, it would be nice to skate on a pond again because I haven't done that in a few years.
I tell you, dude, like there's a pond right down the street from my house that it froze up early in the year, and then it like kind of like started to unfreeze a little bit, but it's for the most part like it's been frozen this whole winter, and I'm like kind of curious to go over there and give it a shot or give it a test. Maybe throw a large rock on it first before I go to walk on it, but
yeah, I would definitely do that. The only problem is once you get a little bit of snow on top of that, it tends to really kind of, make the ice real bad. So I'm kind of hoping the same thing that, there's a pond here in my community here, aside from the big lake that does freeze up. And I'm kind of hoping that the rain coming up this week will kind of even it out. And then, when a cold snap coming back in, it'll make for some good pond hockey, which would be fantastic.
just got to convert an old John Deere tractor into like a mini Zamboni, and then you'll be good.
There you go. I hear the music, Sam. I hear the music.
Oh, I just put it on. Just to
By the
give
way,
you guys,
the pennant looks real good behind you, Sam.
you like that?
Yeah.
I like
Nice.
it. By the way,
Down.
so I'm gonna. So Sam
Whoops.
didn't really explain this. Sam didn't really explain it all too well.
Whoops.
We walked
That is
in.
pretty wild.
We walked into the event and we saw it on the raffle table, and Sam instantly was like, "I want that. That's awesome. I want that. I have opening night pennant. I want that pennant." Right? And
Yep.
as they're calling off the numbers, right? I get called. I got an autographed puck, and finally we're looking at it. Sam's number gets called. He went right to that pennant because it was still there. That was
Heck
he
yeah.
had his eye on that from the moment we walked in the door.
You know what?
And
I
he
gotta say,
got
is it legit or is it like a reprint?
No, it's legit. Sponsored by
That's even
Red
cooler.
Red Baron or whatever pizza.
Red Robin?
Red Robin. Or
Red
whatever.
Robin.
Yeah.
Red Robin.
Yeah. No,
Yum.
that's a legit banner. So
Well, the Devils fan club is great. You win prizes. Everybody that buys a raffle ticket actually wins. And then they had some pretty good stuff. And I'm not like, hold on a sec. Let me turn down the music. Like, we're not getting paid to just promote the Devils fan club. Like, I really like the Devils fan club. And
Yeah,
we ate like kings over there at Mother's Ale House. We ate like kings.
no, it was
And
a
the
really good
desserts.
time.
There was tons of desserts, but and Shorts Guy, my wife is actually watching. Was I on my best behavior with my New Year's resolution in terms of my eating? Because I can eat. Like I
Oh, I
eat
know.
anything
Yeah,
in
no.
sight.
Sam drank a pitcher of Coke.
No, I didn't. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
No, Melanie, he drank water the entire time. I even got him one of his waters. He drank water the entire time. He did not have any soda. He looked at me and he said, "Is ginger ale soda?" And I was like, "Yes, Sam, it's soda." So I was guiding him in the proper direction. He held his New Year's resolution.
Checks in the on its way, Shorts Guy.
All right, good. Just I hope you made it out to either myself or my friend Cash. So,
Yeah, your friend Cash.
all right, perfect.
Johnny.
No, it really was a really good time, and I know they have another one coming up, so I think we should look into it. Although we did get yelled at by Trudy for not signing up ahead of time. We kind of just walked in and got in. So
We just
next
walked in.
time, Trudy, if you're listening, next time we'll sign up ahead of time. I don't want to get yelled at by you again.
We got to get Trudy on. She's a real badass. Honestly,
Yeah, we do. We do
She
have
is
to
a
get her on.
badass. Like
She
if
worked
those
her
that don't
tail
know,
off
I
for
you know
for
what
that
this
watch
is.
party.
Before we cut the podcast, I gotta tell you what I did. I feel bad, but I was just observing. So Trudy parked next to me at Mother's because I was waiting for you, Shorts Guy.
Keyed your car.
What's that?
I said she keyed your car.
Oh, I thought you said she peed on my car. And I was like, well, that actually happened in New York City. But that's another story for another day. So I'm watching her. I'm just observing. And, this is like, this tiny lady gets out of her car. I'm like, it's Trudy. Man, does she take control. She just got in her SUV and pulled out all these boxes and this and that and whatever. And she was like, bam, all set up when we got there.
Yeah, she's been doing it.
I felt bad. I felt bad. Like, I didn't help her out. But, I mean, she seriously is a badass. And we got to get her on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, totally. Let's do that.
Eric Burns says, stay away from Sweet Melissa's. I don't know what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to tell us later, Eric.
Rare miss.
All right. Well, let's end this podcast. But and also, we want to thank Nick Villano. He was supposed to come on, but we just ran out of time. So check out Nick and I on short shifts this week. Pucks and Pitchforks. I think we're going to do something with him, but we're going to reschedule that. Sorry, Nick, but thank you for understanding. Any last words, gentlemen?
Bruce. I just want to say, dude, that was talking to Bruce. That was one of those conversations that we could have had going for like 2 hours. That dude was awesome.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, cool guy. He's got stories, man.
I am looking forward to a week without a Devils loss.
That's right.
That's right. All right, I'm just sorry. I'm just setting up here for our outro.
It's the theme of the night, Sam. The theme of the night.
Yes. We're unprepared, but we figured it out, and we even showed you our show rundown, our pre-show meeting.
Yep.
Our pre-production meeting, which will eventually be for eventually it'll be $29.99 a month. Till next time, Devils fans. Let's go, Devils!